Hello, everybody, and happy Friday. Hope you're all having a great day so far. Hello, and welcome to this sixth, can you believe it, sixth episode of this special series brought to you by myself, Dan Assor, and audience engagement specialist Expo Stars. And today we're going to be recapping and reviewing all of our previous episodes, discussing trade show engagement optimization and why it matters. So I'm going to bring on my co-host, the man, the legend, who is Lee Alley, who is the MD of Expo Stars. How are you, Lee?
I'm great, thanks, Dan.
So, Lee, we always start such show. Can you believe, firstly, it's the sixth episode? How time flies. I can't even remember when the first one was, probably in February, I think.
Yeah, February.
Yeah.
It's gone by. I think we've had a couple of mishaps in between, haven't we, with a couple of cancellations. So it's kind of carried on longer than we actually hoped.
Oh, sorry about that. You seem disappointed. But there you go. For the viewers, at least they can see us on screen for over an extended period of time. Yeah, unfortunately, the last one was postponed due to our dear Queen passing on. So clearly, yeah, we didn't think it was appropriate to talk about trade show engagement optimization during the morning period. But there you go. I'm sure she would have approved of it nonetheless. So, Lee, before we get into the 5 pillars of trade show engagement optimization and why they all matter, we always like to start off these chats, you and I, with you telling our audience and myself what you've been up to in a professional capacity, I might add.
Yes, it's been a busy couple of months since we spoke, Dan.
Yeah.
The industry has picked up tremendously over the last quarter or so, and we've obviously been all hands on deck with projects all over the place, from Las Vegas all the way to Bangkok coming up. So it's it's been a tough period, obviously, with a lot of customers coming along and putting requests in, and obviously we've seen quite a few changes as well in the industry with talent issues. Where we were back in 2019, obviously the market has been affected quite badly. So we're kind of picking up again and trying to attract new talent to the industry, and that has represented quite a few challenges for us in terms of helping our clients optimize their trade show engagement with making sure that they have the right people on the booth.
Fair enough. So we've got Virginia that has said hello. So hi, Virginia. Welcome.
Hi, Virginia.
Do you know Virginia?
I don't actually.
Okay,
maybe you ring the bell. I don't know.
We do now. So thanks for joining.
Yeah, I do now.
And I should say that anyone that has any questions for us during the live episode or even on demand, because we're going to sit here on demand, we will see them afterwards. Please put them in the chat, or any just comments about the industry at the moment, any shows you've been to, and anything that you want to tell us about. So we're going to start going all the way back to February, if it was February, when we first spoke about this concept of trade show engagement optimization, which you have coined as TEO. Virginia works for Spiro, so hello, Virginia, again. So
yes, I know.
I believe they are a division of GES, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. Yeah.
So trade show engagement optimization. Tell us in broad terms, before we get into the specifics, how you came up with this, why, what the need was, and how you're sort of rolling it out, I guess, in your day to day.
Yeah, sure. So since the past 15 years, we've obviously been privileged to work at a lot of exhibitions around the globe. And what we started seeing were various patterns of mistakes that exhibitors were making. And then we also obviously saw some great examples of what was actually working at trade shows. So what we did was we had a look at, what is actually working, what makes a really successful trade show stand, okay, looking at obviously the customer journey. And we started obviously investigating what is it that companies do before, during, and after the exhibition that gives them a really positive return on investment. And in my marketing capacity and with the help of Mike, who's our marketing guru, we decided that, we've got SEO, which everyone talks about in the world of digital marketing, and the concept is exactly the same. So your website, for example, is your trade show booth. The web surfers obviously can be the attendees in the hall, okay? And the process is of the same. Companies are spending a lot of money optimizing their website, but why not obviously optimize your trade show engagement as well?
Sure.
So what we did, we looked at what are the 5 key pillars that actually make up the optimization of a trade show. And we came up with the concept of TEO, hoping that companies can actually resonate, having obviously worked with SEO, that if we coin the phrase TEO, that companies will actually get it much more quickly and understand exactly what it is that we're trying to support them with.
Perfect. So there are 5 pillars of TEO, and each of the previous 5 episodes have concentrated on each of them in a bit more detail. So I should say, if you check myself or Lee's LinkedIn page, you should see the previous streams on there. But today we're going to go through each one of them in turn for maybe 2 or 3 minutes as a recap. And as I said, if anyone has any questions or comments or opinions, please put them in the chat. So the first one is about the strategy. So let's delve that. Let's go into a bit more detail. Give us a sense of the strategic considerations that an exhibitor should have when they're deciding on a trade show.
Yeah, the first element really is all about looking at how, if you are exhibiting, how does it actually align with your overall business growth strategy, and how does it align with your sales team efforts, and obviously your marketing as well. So the reason why that's important is a lot of the time exhibition organizers will actually approach you and give you opportunities to come and exhibit at a trade show. But then obviously you need to look at, okay, is enough of my target audience actually at that trade show? And strategically, is it important that we as an organization are seen at that trade show? So because if that trade show does not bring you the attendees that you actually need to grow your business, then there is no point going. And we've had conversations with the client where in hindsight, they said, that is the wrong show. We shouldn't have actually gone. And the reason why they were there was they actually made a last minute choice because they got a cheap offer of space, or they had another, the managing director decided that, on the whim, that they're actually going to go to that trade show, and there was no thought actually behind why they actually wanted to be there. They just got told that, come to the trade show, there'll be lots of visitors, and you've got an opportunity to promote yourself. So and then also you need to look at, what are your key goals? What are your core objectives? Is it brand awareness? Is it lead generation that you actually want? Or is it, do you want to entertain your clients who may be present at that show? So it's really understanding how the overall exhibiting. So if you do 2 or 3 exhibitions a year, what contribution does that make to your sales pipeline, to your brand awareness? And also what does it do in terms of your client engagement as well? So this is why taking stock of your business growth strategy and then aligning it with your exhibiting makes sense.
Okay, so that makes sense. So obviously it's not just about exhibiting or choosing the trade show in isolation. It's looking at everything else that you're doing as well. how else you're getting your pipeline of leads, and as you said, understanding what the objectives are, and I guess also who's going to look after the strategy as well, right?
Yeah.
So, in your experience, does this fall within marketing, ops, sales? Should it be a combination of? What's your view?
My view has always been that it's got to be a collective effort, okay, because all the departments have to talk to each other, from the executive team to the sales team, the marketing, the event management, all the stakeholders that are responsible for the business growth, for the sales pipeline, for brand awareness, okay, they've got to work together, okay, and one of them has actually got to take the lead,
Sure.
and obviously keep everyone in the loop. Because if everyone works in a silo, that's when the whole process actually breaks down, and there's a lot of miscommunication, and the whole process is kind of really broken, and no one then will actually understand what did we actually get from the show, and
Yeah,
the blame game starts to unravel itself.
absolutely. Okay, so that's all about your sort of strategic vision and the reason for doing it.
Yeah.
The second pillar that you've identified is all about the attendee journey. So again, we're not on site yet. We're talking about things like who the audience is, why they should visit the booth, and so on. And also, I guess, engagement strategies on the day. So just sort of bring that to life, please. The second pillar, the attendee journey.
Yeah, sure. You're going to an exhibition, obviously, and then you have a target audience that you want to talk to. So the first thing to do is obviously look at who is that target audience, okay, and actually segment that audience, okay. Obviously, in the hall, there are many, many kinds of different attendees who are actually at different buying stages, okay. So the first thing is to get an understanding, okay, who are the people that are actually going to be in the hall, and who do we actually want to target, and how are we actually going to say hello to them, how are we going to demonstrate our products, how are we going to build our credibility, and how are we going to do that? Okay, well, so what does that booth journey actually look like? Okay,
Yeah,
so and then once you actually segment your audience, so your audience might consist of people who are ready to buy, people who maybe are in the market but not quite ready to buy yet. Then you have your existing clients, and then you have people that will be a complete waste of time, who will, take up your time. They might want to pick up freebies. So
yeah.
what you want to get is an understanding of who that what that audience is made up of, and how you're actually going to take them on a journey that's actually relative to them.
Yeah, because I think you're right. Obviously, trade shows, a lot of them have, by definition, lots of people, right? So we see pictures from trade shows of hundreds, if not thousands, sometimes, and it's easy to get wrapped up in the numbers, isn't it? I'm
Absolutely,
going to
yeah.
meet so many people, and they're all going to be obviously what I'm offering,
Yeah.
and that's not always the case. So that always, I guess, slightly comes back to the strategy and also the questioning of the trade show organizer. Who are the types of personas that are going to be attending? And then, as you said, okay, these people aren't relevant to me. When these people ever approach my booth, or two or three of these, how am I gonna approach them?
Yeah.
You mentioned something interesting. And again, this might seem obvious, and I know you've spoken about it a lot, but the way that you receive someone on your booth is really important, right? So we've all either been exhibiting or been visiting, and that can vary dramatically.
Yeah.
Uh, I guess based potentially because of the type of person or the time of the day, what they've been up to the night before. What's your view, just generally? If I was to stop by your booth, how would you approach me?
Quite simple. Say a simple hello. What brings you to the show? And I wouldn't actually talk about myself for the first 2 to 3 minutes. I would actually make it about the attendee, in terms of asking them, obviously, who they are, what they're doing at the show, do they have any existing projects? And I wouldn't even, talk about my products or services until I know that they're actually a qualified prospect for me actually to talk to. Okay. But at the same time, what I want to do is give them an opportunity to break down the barrier. Okay. Because everyone, when they enter the exhibition hall, knows that they're actually going to be approached and they're going to be sold to. So they're going to obviously have a natural wall that is kind of repelling all the sales talk, right?
Yeah.
So the first job is to actually remove that barrier. And how do you do that is obviously being personal and asking questions about themselves and really getting them to actually talk about themselves in a way that other companies might just go into a sales pitch, for example.
Sure.
So it's really having that personalized experience. And the best way to do that is just ask questions about, what they're doing at the event, what they've actually found, what challenges they're having in their business and so on. Anything but full-on sales pitch straight away.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because you don't know what they want, what their pain points are, and even if you can offer them a solution.
Yeah.
So I guess it also comes down to, and we're going to talk more about this in one of the other pillars, training beforehand, making sure that everyone understands their role. If someone's come up to someone at the booth, do they then move them on to someone else because maybe they want a demo depending on the product or service? So is there even like a sales funnel within the booth itself, sort of moving them around? And that comes to part of the attendee journey pillar is what you want them to think, feel, and do at the booth.
Yeah.
So in your experience, can you sort of bring to life some of the more engaging booth experience that you've been a part of? Whether that's part of the design or the layout or the way that the team are sort of interacting. Even things like gamification and sort of things that they can do on the booth.
Yeah. I was actually going to put a post on LinkedIn today, and I think
do it.
the saying, the phrase I wanted to. Do you remember those posters? You remember Athena, the shop that used to sell posters?
You're showing your age, and
yeah,
I can remember those. One in particular, which we won't mention, but yeah.
Yeah. So one of them, when I started working, one was success is a journey, not a destination. That's always stuck with me. And with exhibitions is exactly, a great exhibition stand is a journey, not just simply a destination. Okay. So having a journey on the booth, actually incorporating elements of saying hello to the client where you're actually arousing the curiosity. So great design, have something that arouses curiosity when people are walking past. It may be, we just did an event in Paris. I did a post about it earlier this week, and there was a booth with an alien kind of tree, okay, with lights and everything. So that kind of sparked people walking past. Looked at the tree and I thought, thinking, what is this? Okay, so they approach a bit closer, have a look at it, and that gives you an opportunity then for one of the booth reps to start the conversation. And then after that, it's a case of demonstrating and building that credibility. So it could be an AR experience, it could be a VR, it could be a game, for example, that they could play. But these experiences have got to be relative to what you're doing as a company. How many times have you been to a booth and they've had a magician, for example, doing tricks, and it's got nothing to do with the business?
Yeah, I once attended a show and I was on a booth and I had to putt, like it had like a putting green. Which they brought in from someone else. And I did that, and then that was like no one approached. So it was almost like, okay, it was great, but there was no relevance to it. I'll just say hello to Beverly, who's put good afternoons.
Hi, Beverly.
I almost said Happy New Year. I'm going mad. Hello, Beverly. How are you? Hope you're well. Okay, so we're going to move on to number 3, booth staff. So this is the third in the 5 pillars of the trade show engagement optimization strategy. Talk about the booth staff. And before I do that, Virginia's also put, it's all about understanding the communities we target first and then designing the experience. I think you all agree with that.
Yeah,
I think absolutely agree with that. That comes back to the the strategy before
Yeah.
we even start these things. So thank you very much, Virginia, for your contribution. Booth staff. How do we select and sort of upskill, if necessary, the right booth staff, and what sort of key job roles are needed?
Absolutely. I think the first thing I've got to say is that exhibitions are all about people, people by people. And despite the millions of pounds we spend on booth design and designing the journeys, people still buy from people. Okay, so it's essential that the team that you have on your trade show booth are great brand ambassadors for your company. So in terms of creating that, we just talked about creating that journey. Similarly, with booth staff, you need to have people who can take attendees on that journey using their personality. So, and the key to understand is that people that say hello at the front of the booth are a different type of personality to the people who may be answering the technical questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So you need to understand that what kind of personalities do we need at each stage of the journey? Okay. Because at the front of the booth, you need people who have the thick skin to be able to take rejection. Okay. Because not everyone that they say hello to will actually want to engage in a conversation. Yeah. And if you have the non-assertive kind of personality who are kind of really sensitive. I know we were just talking about this now before. They're not going to be able to cope with that rejection. So 2 or 3 conversations in, and they'll start feeling absolutely down. Okay. And what happens? You go into this vicious cycle then of somebody looking absolutely miserable because they've been rejected 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And then obviously the other attendees looking at their body language are going to say, oh, we're not going to approach that person because they're kind of really defensive. Yeah.
So I guess you really need to look inside your organization, work out, the roles you need and who can best suit those.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, use an external organization, potentially like yourself, and who have got trained and experienced people. And as you said, I guess it depends on what else is happening on the booth. Talk to me about motivating and setting objectives. Do you think it's right, for example, to set financial objectives depending on obviously what's happened, like based on lead collection or demos, or what sort of things have you seen or do you do with your clients?
Yeah, I think the best thing I've seen is a team objective, everyone working together. When you have individual prizes, it kind of drives the wrong kind of behavior.
Yep.
With superstars trying to like butt into other people's conversations. I'm sure you've seen that happen done many a time.
I thought you were going to say, I'm sure you used to do that. How? Of course not.
Yeah. So I've seen that kind of behavior where you have, an individual goal, the most number of leads wins a prize or something like that. But that for me drives totally the wrong kind of behavior. So if you work together as a team and you have a common objective of saying, right, let's get 60 qualified leads, and maybe if we achieve 100 by scan and marketing qualified leads, for example, that is a reasonable goal. And if you all achieve that, guess what? You all work together, and nobody is trying to get one up on the other person. Okay, and that you can actually celebrate together as well at the end of it. And if you have a team incentive at the end of the exhibition, maybe go for a team lunch or do an activity and celebrate as a team. And that makes it a worthwhile experience. It makes it memorable and also creates, great team bonding as well.
Sure. Which sort of takes us on to the 4th pillar, which is measuring KPIs. I hate that term, KPIs, but it's used. Key performance indicators for people that aren't aware. So we're speaking about motivating people. So how do you sort of define what success looks like? How do you measure it? What sort of things are we collecting from attendees? Let's start with those first. So this is the 4th pillar of trade show engagement optimization. So the KPI measurement.
Yeah, I mean, typically what businesses do is, how they measure success by the number of badge scans, the number of business cards collected. But success really boils down to the objectives that you set in your business growth strategy, okay,
Sure.
and how they actually align with that. So it is the number of qualified leads, okay, and it's all down, again, designing a form that actually helps you collect the data that you want to identify that success. So for me, the thing I always advise companies on is to look at not only obviously the number of leads, but also the sales pipeline value that you actually bring on board as well. So you know what your average customer, every business should know what their average value per customer is on an annual basis or through a lifetime. And okay, if you have 3 or 4 different products, you know what the average sales value of those products is as well. So if you can actually use that, and in your questionnaire, you have a choice of tick box saying, contact me after the event, I am interested in XYZ, and you assign a value to XYZ, then obviously you have your sales pipeline value. And that way, what you can actually do is actually have a metric that you can go to your financial director with and say, we've developed a sales pipeline worth X amount, okay? And you should also know, obviously, what your average sales cycle is. And this is where your sales team can actually help you with their statistics, and they can actually tell you the average sale over the last 12 months took, 5 touch points, and it took 3 months, 6 months, 9 months down to actually close the sale. So using those metrics, you can actually have a really good defined KPIs that you can go to the finance director with and say, you gave us £250,000 this year for the trade shows, and we've got a pipeline of 1.5 million that we've actually got in terms of interest from these. So next year, what we want to do is increase our budget. Can you
give me $500,000?
Yeah, give me $500,000. Yeah. So
I think also it comes back to, I think, when you're speaking to the organizer as well, I think there needs to be more conversations between the organizer and the exhibiting company as to what success looks like. Because again, in my experience, sometimes in the sales team, it's right, I put them in, and then you sort of leave them, and you haven't necessarily understood. And then you come back afterwards. You think it's been a great show as an organizer because it's been busy.
Yeah.
And then the exhibitors are, oh, well, it didn't work for me. So actually, we need to have sensible business conversations beforehand. The sales team or whoever it is saying, right, if you spend this amount of money, what's your expectations back? How many leads, what your conversions are. So I think these conversations need to happen collaboratively between the organisers and the exhibitors. I just want to touch briefly upon integrating the data into the CRM, because obviously that's important as well, right? I'm sure you've seen that doesn't always happen.
Absolutely. And again, it all boils down to the tools that you use to collect the data. Some companies obviously still use the old paper form system. Some people use the badge scanners from the organizer. Some people have their internal system. Beverly, who's on the call, she works for a Captello, which actually can integrate into the organizer's database as well. So really it's a question of understanding which is the best way to collect the information, and then obviously having a process to actually put that into your CRM, and actually having a feel. I think one of the biggest mistakes companies make is that assigning the trade show, assigning the opportunity to the actual trade show that they actually visited.
You don't see that happen enough, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So it's really having that CRM and actually, making sure that data is correctly entered, and then there's obviously a process to actually assign the leads to the relevant departments and people.
Sure. And Beverly's point of qualified is key, not just names and emails. I think we all agree with that. That comes back to understanding what your strategy is, what you're trying to achieve, what the training of your booth staff, how they're motivated, and the KPIs. So that absolutely Beverly runs through it.
Yeah.
It's on the CRM. The fifth and final pillar is about the follow-up. So again, we've all possibly been privy to, places where lots of leads, and then nothing's done. Nothing's done with them for quite a while, which is criminal. Talk about the fifth pillar, the follow-up. What's the first step after the exhibition to re-engage with the lead, assuming it is qualified and it's someone you want to engage with?
Yeah, the first step with the follow-up is actually at the exhibition, okay, is to look at bridging that gap between the conversation that you're having and the follow-up.
Sure.
Okay, and this is where a lot of companies make a big mistake in that they say, let me scan your badge and we'll get back to you straight away after the event. Okay, and that process can take a week, 2 weeks, or even never in some cases. So the key thing is to get effective follow-up. What companies need to do is look at a way of getting permission from the attendee to how they want to be followed up. Okay.
Yep.
So it's giving that attendee options to say, okay, we've had a great conversation. How do you want us to follow up with you? Okay. And give them 2 or 3 options that they can actually choose from that are actually relative to their situation. Okay. And not just rely on sending blanket emails to everyone, thanking them for coming onto the booth. That obviously with a lot of the software is given that everyone gets a thank you email after the event. But the key thing is getting permission as to how they actually want to be followed up. So if you everyone has a mobile phone with a calendar on. Okay, so if if the conversation is very hot, there's no reason why you can't put a follow-up meeting right there in the calendar. Okay, I actually agree that with them. Or if they're in the second category of they're not in the ready to buy yet, but they are a potential client, what you can do is agree to invite them to a webinar that you're running or send them an ebook. And the last one is, just send them some general information about the company, okay, without that follow-up. So again, it's all down to understanding where you are with that prospect when you're actually having that conversation, and then obviously segmenting your follow-up and making it personal to that each individual person.
Yeah, I guess prioritizing them depending on obviously how many we've got, making sure that if you've got obviously more than one person in your sales team or your business dev team or the team that's following up, that they obviously are allocated accordingly. And then there's an overlay that people are making sure this is being done and obviously entered into the system and then entered into the ongoing sort of communication with these people going forward. And having people accountable, to making sure these things happen. And I guess also tracking the process periodically, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Especially when you have long sales cycles. I mean, we work with clients that have sales cycles of 3+ years. In the aviation industry, in the broadcasting industry, even in the telecoms industry, when you're selling big equipment, your sales cycles can be anything from a year to 5 years or even longer. So it's important that you have constant checks in place after maybe every quarter or every 6 months and see where you are with those leads from that specific trade show.
Sure. So we've gone through the 5 pillars in speedy fashion. As I said, if you want a more in-depth analysis of each of those pillars, then just look back on mine or Lee's LinkedIn profile, or also go to the Expo Stars website, where I believe all the episodes are sitting, or mine at danasor.com. So Lee, I know that you've also got an ebook. So tell us about the ebooks. This is just an opportunity for people to engage with you and get some free advice. And I guess it talks more about these pillars. So if they go to
so the ebook is a comprehensive guide to the 5 pillars that we talk about, and giving some helpful advice on that. So some of the key points to look at, some of the exercises that companies can actually do to optimize each one of those 5 pillars within their exhibiting process. And then on the back of the ebook, we also have a self-assessment. So if an exhibitor wants to check where the gaps are in their engagement process, we have an assessment that it takes about 5 minutes. It is about 50 easy questions that they can answer, and it gives them a personalized score of areas that they're doing really well, and then areas where they need improvement on. And then obviously the assessment also gives some advice in terms of the things and action points that they can actually do to implement to improve the whole process.
Perfect. So, Lee, thank you so much for your time again. It was always good to talk to you and to go through this series of 6 episodes. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for people's comments. If you've got any further comments, if you like the episode, and or you want to ask myself or Lee a question about anything that we've discussed today, please pop it in the comments, or obviously contact us or Lee specifically directly. And also your website, expostars.com. Have a great rest of the Friday, everybody, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.